Hello, guys, and welcome to today's episode of the Wolf Digest. I am your host, Amaros Dannon.
And I'm your co-host, Terkanil. And today our articles are hitting on some Amazon-related news and response, some AT&T news, a bit of news regarding CenturyLink in Utah here, and yeah. So, starting out with Amazon, some of you may have heard of the Amazon Web Services. This is their big hosting cloud service that, mostly meant for businesses. They also have databases that you can operate off of that, and how that's all utilized in the back end either by Amazon themselves or by the clients, their own clients. And it was stated this week that Amazon is going to be discontinuing the use of Oracle-specific databases on their web services and using their own database provisioning in the AWS services. And shortly after that was stated, the who is this again? The CTO? Yeah. So Larry Ellison, the CTO of Oracle, responded saying essentially that there's no way a normal person would move to Amazon Web Services, and it would be better to stick with Oracle. And there were some comments around the why made on that, but it was kind of a knee-jerk response as I was seeing it. What do you think?
Well, I think Amazon is correct. They definitely shouldn't be relying on a third-party company's database product if they have their own in-house product that works, in their opinion, just as well. Moving off of Oracle's databases to their own is kind of a public step where they can say, oh, look, our databases are so good that we're putting our own stuff on them. It'd be like if you saw Microsoft running their entire org on Linux servers. Would you really feel very comfortable running on Microsoft servers if Microsoft themselves wouldn't run on them?
Yeah, it might make you a little hesitant. It's like, why are you not using your own operating system?
Yeah.
Of course, I know we do know that they do use some Linux services, but
well, yeah, I think part of the reason why they've taken this long to move off isn't necessarily that the AWS databases are inferior or problematic. It's how long it takes to port software from one database type to another, especially something as exotic as an Oracle database to something that might be a more NoSQL or standard SQL base. I know at work, I actually manage two separate installations of Oracle, one that had 2 databases in it, and the other one had 4 Oracle databases in it. And we have since retired the 2 because we basically demanded that we get off the Oracle database ASAP into that software's Microsoft SQL version instead. And they took about 3 years from the time that they even told us that they were working on a SQL version to actually then have a product in hand that we could then just use Microsoft SQL as the backend instead of Oracle. And that was for a relatively small program. We're not talking PR systems or anything like that. We're talking a smaller web front end system, and it took them that long to move. And our other program that's running on Oracle, we have the whole setup, RMAN, we have prod, dev, test, all that. And quite frankly, it's a bear to manage. Whereas something like Microsoft SQL is a lot easier to just have kind of a readily manageable software by somebody that doesn't require classes and classes of training in advance. Somebody could just jump in and learn how to manage it hands-on, really, without a whole lot of startup or invested time to learn how to use it. and Oracle's just not that way. And quite frankly, some of the tools surrounding it are kind of cumbersome too. Just installing the ODBC connector for Oracle is a pretty big ordeal. We're
Yeah,
talking
one I
environment
remember having to
variables.
do with that once. And what was it about? I think it was about 15, 16 years ago. My dad actually tried doing something with Oracle databases. Um, and so I ended up learning a little bit about it back then, and it was painful.
Well, to be frank, it hasn't changed. It's
Oh geez.
literally 90s tech. You can see it and feel it. A lot of it has Java as its underpinnings, which,
Ugh.
it's Oracle. It needs to, right? Yeah, the client, if like the SQLite and stuff, those are all underpinned by Java. Fortunately, they actually have been keeping up on the Java, and so you don't require to run like Java 6 and like some Brocade or uh, Cisco flavors of things, but it's still there, and it's sometimes very mysterious why the thing doesn't work. I've had the SQL client for Oracle not want to install on several Windows boxes, and I've had to go through and make registry edits and things just to kind of force it in there. And it's just kind of a weird mess. Now, if Microsoft, um, if you tried to do like SQL on Linux, it might be just as convoluted for some things, but just the ability to drop in a Microsoft SQL on a Windows server and connect to it with Windows clients is a pretty seamless experience. And that's probably partly to do with the fact that they're both made by Microsoft, right?
Well, part of that just comes from the fact that the SQL connections are now native in Windows from essentially Windows 7 forward.
Yeah, that too. And, it's a pretty straightforward experience. There's not a whole lot of exoticness to it. It is a monolithic database, but what I mean by that is it doesn't have separate files for tables, things like that. It's one big SQL file
Mm-hmm.
broken up depending on how you architect design it. But yeah, they're expecting to have 97% of their databases off by the end of the year, which is not too far away.
Yeah.
Oh,
We
end of
change.
2019 or mid, they'll
Oh.
be done.
So a year out.
97% of mission critical databases by the end of the year. That's what. So yeah, they're almost done. And Oracle is still bragging about their 1,000 autonomous database trial activations per month. I mean, I've seen what a renewal of Oracle costs. I've seen the quotes that have been sent to us in our Oregon. Yeah, I definitely know why they're struggling with market penetration in SMB or even mid tier. If it's not a Fortune 500, you probably can't afford it. Is the whole point
Yeah.
there. But to be
I've
fair, if you're not a Fortune 500, you probably don't need the amount of depth and feature that Oracle provides, because you can get some really good speed, good performance out of an Oracle database. But you need a team of Oracle designers, developers, administrators to actually get that.
mm-hmm.
So that's why I say if you're not a Fortune 500, you probably won't. Because Microsoft SQL, MariaDB, uh, MySQL, you could even do more along the lines of like NoSQL or some of these MongoDB and stuff. And probably get the performance that a normal SMB or mid tier would need out of something.
there's various ways you can optimize a database, whether it, depending on what you're actually using on the back end,
Mm-hmm.
whether it just be, anything related to, it can be sometimes hardware, it can be software, it can be code optimization, or even just optimization in the database itself. And it really can be, and sometimes it's just a matter of how much effort it takes to actually interact from the software to the database. So,
Yeah.
and so there's a lot of things that can go into that puzzle. So it's just an interesting, item that came up, just because it's not very often you see company is doing this, and then a direct shot off the deck from another from the company that was in the basically getting the shaft.
Yeah. I mean, one of the leading principles of business management is you don't publicly flog someone. Like, if you have to do punishment, you do it in private, right?
And try at least keep it less in the public eye. But there's
yeah,
a few people that don't seem to get that.
yeah. Well, to be fair, Amazon threw the shots first by using their migration off of Oracle as a PR stunt. The retaliation from Oracle and basically mocking them, saying nobody would be willing to give up all that reliability and whatnot, except for maybe Jeff Bezos. That kind of made it personal, and you don't want to take personal shots. It definitely cheapens you in the public opinion, in my opinion.
And part of it seems to be just more just, I mean, you can look at some of these, actions as like financial. It's like, if you have a way to, serve everything your customers need and provide, the performance necessary, performance and security, that's probably going to way that the way you're going to try to go. And in a way, that's kind of, at least as I see it, where they're pushing there. I don't know what other ideas they might have in mind other than saying, "Hey, we can do this as well."
Mm-hmm.
But from the Oracle standpoint, it's just a matter of they're losing everything on Amazon Web Services. So to them, it's like kicking the butt.
Yeah, for sure. And they lose that bragging right to say that, hey, look, Amazon is one of our people and they have their own cloud service. But, Oracle's doing their own Gen 2 cloud infrastructure, autonomous database tech, and all of that stuff as well. So Oracle has their own database cloud you can tie into and use as well. So they're competitors directly, not just in sharing a on-prem or off-prem kind of database idea.
Mm-hmm.
But just by sheer cost, I'm not sure if Oracle's going to win versus AWS.
Considering how much, it is one of those cases of large gorilla. So, I mean, look at what happened with AMD when they announced their Epic and announced that AWS has servers running Epic, and look what that did to stock.
Oh yeah. So, well, and not only that, but their partnership with AMD and between AMD and Amazon, they now have E3 servers that you can specify. I want to run on AMD chips, not on Intel chips. They have a different name for them, and they actually said if you switch from your Intel to an AMD server, you're going to save 10% on your compute costs right off the top.
Yep.
Nothing lost. All you do is you save 10% on your costs for the same performance level.
And that's hard to, at least not I.
Yeah, it gives you the ability to seriously think about, well, maybe we should just, yeah, dollars and cents. That's what it comes down to for sure.
And going forward into, stuff that can affect us consumers, AT&T has announced that they're rolling forward on their 5G plan and have effectively opened it up in 12 major cities in the US. And to top that, they're giving out to a unknown group of customers Nick your Nighthawk 5G mobile hotspots for quotedly at least 90 days, which to me sounds like, here, be our guinea pigs.
Well, I think they're going to be guinea pigs for a lot longer than that. I mean, South Korea just barely started pushing out their 5G installations as well. And Samsung actually had a Galaxy branded phone, the A8E or something like that, that was 5G capable to penetrate that market. But this hotspot you're referring to, it won't be available to us, the general populace, till like spring of 2019
or so.
Yeah, but then they're going to charge us $499 for it. That's $500, and then $70 a month to get just their 15 gig plan for data,
which is extremely expensive.
Yeah, $70 for a whole 15 gig of data. Ooh,
Let's see. On our home connections, we can blow through that in about 10 minutes.
I go through that just uploading a YouTube video.
Well, it's usually, yeah, if you give them long enough. Yeah. Long enough, high enough resolution. Yeah, I can see that.
1080p all the way.
But it's just interesting as a saying, look, we got this. This is great. And here, you can have it for X amount, but we need some guinea pigs. Here we need some guinea pigs.
Yep. And they only got those few cities. They're going to do 7 more cities in the first half of 2019. So they'll be doing Vegas, Los Angeles, Nashville, Orlando, San Diego, San Francisco, and San Jose. So that'll expand the first 12 cities.
Yeah, we still don't care. It's not nowhere near us.
Basically, any of the cities that Comcast was doing their 2 gigabit data plan for are the ones that are going to end up with the 5G. It's about what it looks like.
The really funny thing about it is like, yeah, you can have a mobile hotspot that, can have 5G speeds. That means you can burn through that 15 gig in
sooner,
a very short amount of time. Well, but you can get it.
To be fair, the 5G speeds kind of start where the 4G leaves off. So you got your 4G LTE and things like that. It kind of tops out, and 5G is supposed to pick up right around that level, expand, 5 times beyond that. I believe it was 5. It might just be 4. But it does this with millimeter wave lengths, so that they can get higher throughput, but that requires more power and closer to the cell site. So the 5G kind of requires a kind of micro cell structure to it. So they have to put more cells out there in order to actually give you that full 5G speed.
So in the end, it comes down to right now, people aren't going to care.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very interesting to see how this ends up playing out.
Well,
because really most of us aren't going to have much use for it yet. And then if we are, we can't afford that kind of thing.
Well, we don't definitely live in any of these cities that are going to get the 5G right off the bat. So it really doesn't make a difference to us.
We probably won't see anything like that here until 2020 or so.
Yeah, but even if you do live in one of the cities that are getting 5G, you're probably not going to be within range of a 5G tower that you'll have any significant improvements over what would have been your 4G speeds anyway. So,
it does say parts of 12 cities.
Yes, parts. Probably downtown locations, thoroughfares, places where
major traffic.
Places where they already have cell phone towers. But like I said, it's going to require a denser mesh of cell towers. So those towers aren't going to reach far enough to give 5G speeds unless if you're near the tower or close enough to it. So if your 4G is kind of weak right now, you probably won't get 5 for a little bit. But
in short, Yay, 5G is opened up. We don't care because it doesn't do us any good.
Yeah. In Samsung,
Huzzah.
the S10 is rumored to have a 5G variant that not only AT&T but Verizon is also going to have. And this S10, we're not sure if it's going to be similar to the normal S10 or the S10 Plus, but rumor is that it's going to be more on the plus side. So we'll see. I know that you probably won't see it in an iPhone until 2020 because iPhone and Qualcomm are not happy right now. Apple's actually looking at pulling several models of iPhone from not just China, or was it South Korea? I think it's China, but also from some of the Eurozone as well because of patent issues with Qualcomm. And so Apple's actually said they're going to be using an Intel 5G modem, and they've been having some issues with their Intel 5G modem where it's causing overheating issues and severe battery drain. So they're working through some of those problems.
Apple. Yeah. Well, new technology, it will get here eventually. As to when it will actually be, feasible for most of us, who knows? But coming closer to home here, we're in Utah. So we have a very, select number of choices for internet, like, well, all the country really. And one of the major choices here is DSL via CenturyLink.
Well, they do have some fiber options too.
Yeah,
Just
there is that.
Not for us. They only give us like 30 or 40 MIP DSL and tell us to be happy we got that.
Get fiber. There actually is apparently fiber available from them relatively close to where I live, but it's like I have to go about a block and a half over to be in range.
Somewhere a little more closer to a city's thoroughfare. Yeah.
No, it's actually to the west, not closer to thoroughfare.
Wow. So not a main road, but a smaller main road. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's their loss anyway.
Yeah.
If they would have had fiber run into my house, I would have got them over anyone else, even though I'm not a big fan of CenturyLink.
I've never been a fan, even before they're back when they're called Quest. But they caused some news this week. The kind of news that we all look at going, what the? And it's not good. So apparently here in Utah, we have a quote new law that requires that ISPs notify customers of available filtering options, I guess, parental controls, and to notify their customers in a quoted conspicuous manner. Well, CenturyLink decided to do it by blocking all internet access until you've acknowledged their little notice. I'm not telling block web access or until you do something with it. I'm talking all traffic is shut down.
Well, to be fair, when you first get Comcast, they do the same thing. You can't access the internet until you click OK on their walkthrough setup screen, right? You try to go to Google or whatever, and they do that same browser redirect and slap you right into the Google, or not Google, the Comcast setup page where you basically next, no, next kind of thing. Because who wants to install their Norton antivirus or McAfee or whatever flavor of the day they're pitching and all of that. So it's been done before, but the difference is that they're doing it in the middle of your service being live and then not really giving you any forewarning. It just one day in the middle of who knows when, it just stopped working. And until you tried to go to a web page, you wouldn't know. Imagine what that does for people who are using CenturyLink as, say, a backup. So they never actually use the internet on it until they go and have to fail over to it. Or maybe they're doing load balancing, or even just using CenturyLink as a PRI, or should I say a VoIP trunk.
And I can kind of understand it on when you first set up, because that's just an acknowledgement of here's the stuff we have available, and then once it's done, you don't ever see anything ever again.
Yeah.
But having it essentially comes off as an ad saying, here's what we can do for you, pay if you want to pay us extra money in the middle of service, and you're literally blocked from internet access.
Yeah. I mean, Comcast fulfilled the law by just sending out a flyer with their bill, provided in an email even. I don't know. Yeah, but the law even says you can send it with the consumer's bill. Now, of course, CenturyLink is taken kind of the think of the children method to explain what they did and why. They're like, oh, this is our most needing to be protected class of people. These children, we want to protect them the best we can, and we wanted everyone to be aware that we can protect them, rather than get it with your bill, which gets just discarded into the trash because you auto pay or who knows what. So I can see them wanting to use this as an excuse to get 100% outreach. But I also see it as a marketing ploy, because you know what? Their filtering service is not free. They charge for it. If it was free, I could see their altruistic approach, but it's not. They charge
We'll
for
also
it.
look at it from the perspective of what this could do to somebody. Think about some of the medical emergency devices that are connected to a home wireless network.
Mm-hmm.
Think about if the consumer happened to be using CenturyLink. Now let's top that off with they got this nice little notice. They don't know they have to go to their computer to acknowledge it so it all works. And let's say they actually had an emergency.
Well, let's say they were trying to use their tablet, because this is a non-computer user. They just have a tablet that they use to pull up their mail app and their Facebook app. They don't launch the internet and go anywhere. They just use their e-reader, their Amazon Kindle, or who knows what. And they would just think that their internet's not working. They would have to call into customer service to even get anywhere with this. But until then, their medical alert or who knows what device wouldn't be functional.
And that's where my biggest problem from this comes in is there's a number of things that could be shut off in that kind of respect. And it just says, do you have any idea of the level of problem you can cause?
Yeah, exactly.
And if I remember correctly, even though it says, after you've acknowledged this, okay, your internet service is back up, it should be fully available in the next, few minutes, if not, power cycle your modem. But what?
Yeah.
And
yeah, within the next 5 minutes, please power off your modem for at least 30 seconds.
This is just a special kind of dumb, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And one thing else is, and I saw this article popping up, not just from local news, but places like Ars Technica. And I didn't even think I saw one on the register, which means did I actually see one on the register? Let me double check that. So it did. That means it got to Britain. And it's a special kind of fill when you actually start seeing it pop up on, British news sites.
Well, because everyone is doing that facepalm thing when they read about it. It's like, why did they do this? It was so bad that a senator had to respond saying, no, there wasn't a requirement to block access. That was something CenturyLink did.
let's see. Okay, so no, it did not show up in register, so it showed up somewhere else in the U.S. at that point. But it's when I actually see site, the fact that I actually got to Ars Technica, it says that it made enough noise. So
Yeah.
When our own senators actually come back and say, why do you do that? And we have our own qualms with some of the things that happen in our government. I'm not going to touch that, though.
Depends on what it is. Like the dismissing of net neutrality, for instance.
Yeah, there's, and this one is, in a couple of groups have tied this in part back to that dismissal.
Yeah, some of them are trying to make that link.
I don't know if how that would have played out if FCC had not or had left it in place. So, that part is, harder to really figure out. That's more of a what if. It would require, people a little more knowledgeable of law and such than us to really figure it out.
I'm just hoping that based on the egg on their face from this, they and other ISPs will hesitate to do this kind of thing in the future. And so kind of a win for us consumers now that consumers have had to suffer.
Yeah, you can obviously tell that CenturyLink doesn't really care. And their canned statement kind of, pushes to that end. Like, here's what it reads. This is, they gave ours, like, what I would see as a canned statement, stating, the intent of the Utah state legislation is to ensure that Utah internet consumers are aware of content filtering options to protect minors. The statute provides for various options, but the method of notification is to be conspicuous to ensure the message is read. We felt, given the gravity surrounding the protection of this most vulnerable population, the most conspicuous method of pop notification is a pop-up. I think that's a little bit stronger than a pop-up.
Yeah, blocking all non-port 80 traffic in addition to port 80. Yeah.
And then CenturyLink did not engage in DNS hijacking. And the pop-up is being used to adhere to state law.
Yeah, they didn't hijack a particular DNS page or anything like that. They didn't say that google.com is their IP. They just said any traffic whatsoever gets redirected to this website. They just did blanket hijacking. Not DNS hijacking. They just hijacked your session altogether. Redirected you. Yeah.
So, on one hand, this is going to be a little bit of PR problem for CenturyLink.
Not that many people have another ISP option anyway. If you're using CenturyLink, it's probably because the one other ISP in your area is someone you abhor. That's the only reason I can think of it.
Yeah, we don't have many options here, and it kind of really depends on where you are, but we'll get into that another time.
Yeah, I think most people don't have many options.
I think I'm here. I'm limited to Comcast or CenturyLink.
Yeah. So. I actually have like 5 options, but that's because I have WISPs, those wireless internet service providers.
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, I don't consider many Wi-Fi internet service providers as a viable option for at least a gamer or IT person.
Yeah, for our level of crazy, no. It's too easy for us to muck up that noise. It wouldn't muck up the airwaves with that kind of noise.
Well, it would definitely stress the connection, we'll say. But that's like saying, well, you can just use dial-up to remote into work and transfer those files off your server.
Oh. Yeah, the only thing I can say about dial-up goes back to an old comment I made about, the old comment about internet connections is it's a pipe. It's your pipe, right? So let's go down to dial-up. Congratulations, you are now operating through a coffee straw.
Yep.
Good luck.
The internet's all a bunch of tubes anyway, right? All right. Well, on a high note, let's wrap on our next thing. Pretty pictures, right?
You got pretty pictures for us?
I do. nVidia actually released a demo about mesh shaders. Basically, it's a way of managing object lists, triangle lists, because polygons make up objects in a 3D game. And in this picture, you can see all of the little polygons there that make up these objects. And as they get closer to the screen, the level of detail can dynamically increase. So you see the close-up objects have a lot of polygons, a lot of triangles, and the mesh technology that they're demoing can dynamically downshift to these different level of details, all the way down to where it's just 10 polygons or so for the far distant objects. Because something that's only 3 pixels tall or 20 pixels tall doesn't need to be 3 million triangles and managed through RAM and whatnot to figure out that only 10 pixels need to be shaded, right? So it manages all of this kind of dynamically for you on the GPU using the RTX stuff that came out with Turing. So pretty nifty stuff. Nothing too much is really using it right now. I think there was one game that pushed out a patch recently that started using this technology, but you can see it's going to be pretty sweet when more and more games actually start using this, and that's really going to be driven by the engines that run those games. It'll be interesting to see if some of these other games like Star Citizen starts implementing this stuff to give it a little bit of extra oomph. I mean, that game's already pretty, you know.
Yeah, and I've been watching Star Citizen because I went in early on, getting the game, and the first time I tried it, I had to upgrade my video card because my old card back then couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And when I upgraded to a was it 760, it could handle it barely.
Yeah, and now you're up at a 1070, and you probably have a somewhat fluid experience on it, right?
I honestly can't remember if I've tried it on the big rig yet.
Uh-oh.
I'll have to try it.
I guess that is the downside of a perpetually beta game, right?
Well, for my case, it's too many games. But I think that's going to be my homework over the Christmas break.
At least see how your 1070 handles it.
Yeah. See how that big rig over there can handle that particular game, how well it turns out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, seeing some of the videos and what I've seen from it, what they've been doing with it, it's a very visually pretty game. I'll put it that way. So if they aren't doing anything with this yet, I would highly imagine that they would be jumping on it pretty quick, because this is the kind of thing that I could see them using or wanting to use.
There's a lot of game engines that already have a level of detail kind of built into them, but they use the CPU to manage those triangle lists. This will do it on the GPU for you automatically, and I think that'll help reduce the complexity of game engines and allow them to have better performance, better quality up front without putting as much load on the CPU.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting method they're showing off here. So once they actually start getting used, it should be interesting just to see how it does and how it plays out for general performance overall.
Yeah, because I think that's really the only way we're going to see this make an impact is going to be in performance metrics, because, like I said, engines already do something similar to this in a rudimentary fashion, even just to help. A lot of what games used to do is actually put in that fog. So when you look at old games that have fog everywhere, when you look off to the horizon, that's them trying to obscure distant objects because they didn't want to have the ability to manage a separate triangle list for different levels of detail. But now, if you play something like World of Warcraft, you'll notice their view distances dramatically increase. They removed a lot of that fog that you had back in Vanilla or Burning Crusade, and their engine actually has the ability to do level of detail. And you can see that come into play as you're approaching like a mountain range that lines the edge of a zone. You can see the mountains just be flat colored triangles, and you can see that they're triangles. And then as you get closer, you'll cross that 1 yard threshold or 1 meter threshold that'll just flip it to more detailed mountain range. And then get a little closer and it'll flip to a textured mountain range. It's really obvious.
Wow, it is, yeah.
Yeah, because they only have like 4 gradients of it, or maybe 5. This has,
I think 5.
Yeah, this has 9, and it's handled in hardware so that
Technically 10.
they can step up that LOD sooner and not have to worry. So
It's going to be interesting technology to see how it works out. I'm also going to be curious to see if AMD responds in any fashion.
oh, they will. It's just a matter of how. Yeah, they might write something in their drivers to start to rudimentarily handle it. The thing that makes this technology more stand out is the ability to actually do application defined callbacks. To actually, well, I guess you would call them rules, to generate these LODs all the way up to 9 and such. It allows for procedurally generated objects, and a lot of the culling stuff. It can all be programmatically written as opposed to being fixed function, which is what tessellation is right now.
I think it said something about they aren't using any tessellation on this.
No, there's no tessellation at all in what we were just seeing in the demo. And that's part of the impressiveness, right? But having application defined rules is pretty much the big win of this. It gives the developer the ability to control what would have been a fixed function method, so that they can dynamically create that 9th level of detail or something like that, rather than having to paint it manually.
And as much as we would like to show the demo and how it works for us, we got one of these cards. They're a bit out of our range.
Yeah, until we get a lot of donations or subscriptions or something like that, then we won't be able to drop $1,200 on an RTX card, or even the $800 for a cheaper one, right?
Yeah, we got more pressing expenses, unfortunately.
Like our drive space and CPU power.
Mm-hmm.
That's my wish list right now, right?
And there's the general curse of adulting.
Yeah. But
at least we can at least sit back and watch how it plays out in the market.
Yep. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be looking at a Gen 2 card for my next upgrade. Because
I should put in a good time.
I mean, I got a 10 series card right now, and I'm perfectly satisfied with it. I have 0 qualms, but then again, it's also not a 1060. So, and speaking of, there is rumors of an RTX 2060 coming out. You know that?
Heard of that? Yep.
Yeah. Because everyone was kind of under the assumption that 1060 and lower would be a GTX branded card still, and that it wouldn't have any of this RTX stuff in it. But
new rumors are floating up about it being actually branded as RTX rather than GTX.
Yeah, which suggests that it's probably going to be a 2070 cut down even further.
So, I guess wait and find out.
Well, actually, it might not be. They might have a separate chip for it. A TU-106 kind of thing, or a 206, whatever.
Numbering, yeah.
Whatever the core numbering ends up being, they are known to have like 2 cards based on one chip design. You got your full and your cut down version. All right, well,
so, not too much hard on that, so we'll wait and find out, and when we hear something,
you'll know it.
We can bring it up again.
Of course, we like to circle back on some of these tech news because they all tie together. But
as demonstrated.
Yeah. But thank you guys for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next one.
Have a good one.